While you probably bought your Synology BeeStation in part to act as a backup for your computer, you can also back up your BeeStation in order to create an additional level of redundancy for that security scenario you may not have considered. So in this video, we're going to take a look at the backup options for a Synology BeeStation, then implement the cheapest option and show you how you can restore data from that backup. As we have a 4TB BeeStation, to keep costs down, we will be making a backup to a 4TB Seagate USB external drive. However, it's worth noting that this option will not protect your data from fire or theft, so later in the video we will be discussing the other options that are available. If we sign into the BeeStation portal, we're first going to check that our BeeStation can see the external USB drive that we just connected. So if we sign into BeeFiles, then select external drives from the sidebar, we should find our external USB drive. Returning to the BeeStation portal and selecting the settings icon, let's now open System Settings. When System Settings loads, in the sidebar we need to find the option called Data Protection. Selecting this option, we are presented with either information about any backups we've already made, or we're shown the backup options that we can use with our BeeStation. Under the heading Backup, Synology warn us about the importance of making an offsite backup, and then present us with a backup solution called BeeProtect. Let's click on the Learn More link and see what BeeProtect is all about. As you may have guessed, BeeProtect is Synology's bespoke cloud backup solution for their line of BeeStations. So it's using a variation of Synology's C2 cloud storage service. However, unlike C2, as Cloud Protect is designed for our BeeStation, it's easier to set up and use while also being more competitively priced. The only issues that we have with Cloud Protect are that it is a subscription service, so over time the costs might start to rack up, and we're not sure how private the Synology servers actually are. Returning to the data protection page, we then have a link that provides us with alternative backup options. The first option is an alternative online backup solution using a Synology C2 storage plan, which, while it will protect our data from fire and theft, is not a very cheap way to back up our data, so we won't be using this option. We then have the option to back up our BeeStation to a Synology NAS, which, while being our BeeStation's more powerful big brother, is more difficult to set up and correctly configure. Finally, we have External Drive, which simply allows us to make a backup of our BeeStation using an external USB hard drive plugged into our BeeStation's USB port. While External Drive is the cheapest option, we need to take into consideration that if our external drive is permanently connected to our BeeStation, we will have no protection from fire or theft, as we can't use two external USB drives and then rotate them so that one is on site while the other is off-site. So if you are worried about fire or theft, you might need to make a daily backup and then place the external drive in a fireproof safe until the next time you need to make a backup. We also have an option that allows us to use an existing backup, something that might be useful if we are migrating to a new BeeStation. Let's highlight External Drive and click Next. We're now presented with a panel that allows us to create a backup schedule for our BeeStation. So first, we need to select our external hard drive from the drop-down menu in Backup Destination. Next, we need to choose our schedule, which can be either every day or a specific day of the week. For this example, we're going to choose every day. We now need to set when our backup will start, so we're going to choose a time when our BeeStation is least likely being used. Finally, we need to set how frequently our backups are being made within a 24-hour period. However, this option will depend on your own personal workflow and how regularly you need to restore files that you're working with. After clicking Apply, we have the option to encrypt our backup, which is probably a good idea to do. So we're going to tick add password protection to my backups, and then create a password. After clicking confirm, we're given the option to download a recovery key in case we forget the password we used to encrypt our backup. Let's click yes to generate a recovery key and have it automatically downloaded to our computer. Our BeeStation will now wait until the scheduled time before it can make its first backup. So let's take a quick tour of the settings that we now have available. If we click on the Settings button, we have three options: Advanced Settings, Log, and Disable Backup. By clicking on Advanced Settings, we are presented with the ability to control the number of versions we keep before they are automatically rotated out of our backups, which means that our BeeStation will only be making an incremental backup, which is where the first backup is a full backup, but subsequent backups will only be for new files or for files that have changed. The advantage of using an incremental backup is that after the first backup, subsequent backups are faster, while also needing to use less storage space than traditional full backups. However, we do have some control over the size of our backups, as we can change the maximum number of versions our backup retains, but for now we're going to stick with 256. Next in Settings, we have a log, which simply lists the events in our backup as they occur, something that is very useful if we ever need to troubleshoot our backups. While our first backup is scheduled for tonight, we want to start making our backups now, so we're going to click on the Backup Now button. It's worth noting that while your BeeStation is making its backup, the performance of your BeeStation can be affected. So if you're currently using your BeeStation, it may be better to wait for its scheduled backup. As the first backup will be a full backup, it will take a longer amount of time to complete. So for example, the initial backup we are currently running took just under 1 hour to finish. At the end of the backup process, we're informed of its success or failure, along with the date and time. You may have also noticed that our backup has made internal restore points to allow us to jump back to specific points in time before a file was modified or deleted. So let's take a look at how we can restore files from our backup, starting with undelete. In order to better demonstrate how we can restore a file or folder to our BeeStation, let's first manually delete a file. While not actually a backup solution, our BeeStation does have an undelete function. So when we delete a file stored on our BeeStation, that file is not automatically deleted, but instead marked for deletion and then placed in a folder until it is permanently deleted after 30 days. Which means that for an accidental deletion, rather than trying to restore from backup, we should first check undelete. So from within B files, if from the sidebar we locate and select Recycle Bin, we simply need to highlight the missing file, and then by clicking the Restore button, have that file returned to the folder it was deleted from. While undelete is useful, it may not be storing the files and folders that you need to restore. So in that case, we need to refer to our backup. However, as our BeeStation does not have an option that allows us to restore a file or folder by browsing through our backup, we're going to need to use a specialist piece of software written by Synology that allows us to pull data from the backup files made on our external hard drive. Returning to System Settings on our BeeStation, and in Data Recovery, under the heading Retrieve Specific Files, we have reference to the type of backup resource that we're using. As we're using an external hard drive for our backups, if we click on Learn More, we are provided with instructions on how we restore files from our backup. Let's go to the BeeStation Downloads page, where we need to find a program called Synology Hyper Backup Explorer. After downloading the program to our computer, we simply need to run it, as it is a self-contained application that does not need to be installed in order to work. Unlike the Windows version of Hyper Backup Explorer, the macOS version will take a while to start. So while we wait, Let's disconnect the external hard drive on our BeeStation and connect it to our computer. We're now asked to choose to either browse our local backup or a backup in Synology C2 storage. If we choose Browse Local Backup, we are prompted to navigate to the USB hard drive we connected to our computer. We now need to open the folder starting with the name mydoodads and ending with .hbk. Within that folder, we will find a file ending in .bkpi, which we now need to highlight and open. As we encrypted our backup, we're now prompted for a password. After clicking OK, we're shown the folders that were created on our BeeStation. We now need to navigate to the location where our deleted file was stored and download that missing file to our computer. Rather interestingly, we can't drag and drop the file to our desktop. So instead we need to highlight our file, then right-click to display a quick menu, and then from within the quick menu, choose Copy to. We now need to choose where we want to download the file to on our computer. So we're going to choose Download Folders, which happens to already have a copy of our file. So we're also going to need to choose Overwrite. After doing a little tidying, it's then a simple matter of using our computer to upload the missing file back to our BeeStation. Let's once again connect our backup drive to our BeeStation and take a look at the two options that we have for doing a full restore. When we configured our BeeStation to make backups, we also configured it to make a secondary backup that automatically creates internal restore points. So if needed, we can use these restore points to revert our BeeStation back to a previous state. However, it's worth mentioning that there are a number of caveats with using a restore point. First, the restore points only go back 30 days, and for some reason, the last created date and time on our BeeStation seems to be corrupt. Second, because restore points are saved to the hard drive of our BeeStation, if the hardware in our BeeStation fails, we will lose this backup option. And the last caveat is that using restore points will not restore any data that has been stored in areas on our BeeStation that are accessible via SMB. For example, any external drives or the Time Machine and media folders. If from within System Settings, we use the sidebar to select Data Recovery, we have a heading called Restore the entire BeeStation, which allows us to restore from our backup or use an internal restore point. For this example, we're going to select Internal Restore Point and choose Confirm. We're now asked to select a restore point, which, because our date and time stamps are corrupt, make it a little hard to do. However, let's try going back 2 points. After clicking Restore, we are provided with some important information about what happens after we use the restore point. If, like us, you're using an Apple Macintosh computer with your BeeStation, it's important to take note of the last warning, as it appears that due to the way macOS works, before we start our restore, we need to move any files from their sync folders. In other words, we need to manually break the sync between our computer and our BeeStation simply by moving the files on our computer to another location. With regards to the instruction that we should stop the sync by using a setting in BeeFiles, as we could not find this setting, we decided just to carry on. After ticking that we've understood the requirements, we can now click on Restore. We now need to wait for our BeeStation to revert back to a previous state, something that, depending on the amount of data, could take a while to complete. After the restore has finished, our browser will return us to the My BeeStation portal. We now need to fix the sync between our computer and our BeeStation, something that you won't need to do if you're using a Windows computer. If we take a look at the BeeStation for Desktop app, we will find that the app is unable to sync. Investigating further, we see that we have a notification informing us that we simply need to close and restart the BeeStation for Desktop application in order to re-establish our sync. Let's click on the BeeStation for Desktop icon in the menu bar and choose Settings and then select Exit. We now need to restart the BeeStation for Desktop app. However, it's interesting to note that we needed to do this a number of times before the application eventually loaded. With the BeeStation for Desktop app once again running, it will automatically create a new sync link between our BeeStation and our computer. However, we now need to check that our computer is correctly syncing files and folders back to our BeeStation. This might include having to manually re-add any files and folders that we've copied from our original synced folder before we broke the sync. Let's now take a look at the process for restoring a BeeStation using an external backup location. Before we start, we need to warn you that performing this type of restore, while not well documented, seems to require that we basically have to reinitialize our BeeStation once the restore has been completed. So this is not a quick fix, and we suggest that you only use this option as a last resort. If we once again choose Data Recovery from System Settings, then under the heading Restore the entire BeeStation, we click on Restore. We now need to choose Restore from External Backup Files. It's worth noting that this option will restore all data, system and app settings using the backup file. And depending on the amount of data, the whole process might take a couple of days to complete. When we click Confirm, we need to choose the location where our backups are stored, which for this example is External Drive. We now need to select the name of the drive and the backup files that we will be using. As our backup was encrypted, we're going to need to enter the password to decrypt our backup. When we click Next, we are prompted to choose the version of the backup that we wish to restore. After clicking on Restore, we're given some important notes about the restore process. And as we're using macOS, asked to end the sync between our computer and our BeeStation. So first, we're going to move the files in the sync folder on our computer to another location. It's worth noting that while we are supposed to stop the sync between our computer and our BeeStation, as I may have misunderstood the instructions and I can't seem to find where in BeeFiles I need to end the sync, I'm simply going to close the BeeStation for Desktop app, which will also stop the sync. Having read the notes and complied as best we can, we now need to tick that we have read and understood the requirements, which is really just a get-out clause for Synology in the event that we lose any data. When we click Apply, a full restore of our BeeStation will start. To give you an idea of how long the restore process took, our BeeStation, which literally has 3 files in a folder, took around an hour to restore. So if you actually have a large number of files to restore, the restore process will take a couple of days. Unfortunately, the problem with performing a full restore is that after the restore has been completed, we still have a lot of work to do in order to get our BeeStation back up and running. So we now need to once again run through the initial setup process and give our BeeStation a name, then re-register it with our Synology account, fix the BeeStation for Desktop app, recreate any synced folders we previously had, create a user account for SMB sharing, re-enable SMB file sharing, set up a new backup schedule, fix our Time Machine backups, and reconfigure any applications that we may be using with our BeeStation. Finally, as we don't fully trust the restore process that we've just used, we would recommend that you double check that all of your data has been restored correctly. Don't forget that at this stage, you still have a copy of your synced files on your computer, and you can recover any missing files from your backup drive using the Synology Hyper Backup Explorer application. So to summarize, in this video we took a look at the various backup functions built into a Synology BeeStation. We then demonstrated the different ways that we can either restore specific data or return our BeeStation back to a previous state.